Ladies and gentlemen, dear students, dear alumni, dear faculty, dear friends of the MCI, dear partners, it's a great pleasure for me and an honor to welcome you once again and to welcome especially our distinguished guest of today, Mr. Dirk Hoke. He is the Chief Executive of Volocopter in Bruchsal, Germany. Great to have you with us, Mr. Hoke.
First of all, please call me Dirk, and a pleasure to be here.
Wonderful. Thank you so much. Dirk or Jürgen?
Dirk.
Dirk. Okay. Anyway, so we have the pleasure and honor to really welcome a distinguished guest. And the distinguished guest has a long-standing career with lots of expertise in the automotive, in the technology industries, but especially now over the last years in the airline and aviation industries. And this is why I think you, after, let's say, 25 years in living on 5 continents, you have become the Chief Executive of Volocopter in 2022. But let me perhaps present you yourself. What would you say are the most dominant or the most relevant stations which have brought you to where you are now?
Yeah, I think first to name was my assignment in China, where I was the president of transportation system, responsible for building up the railway, especially the highway, the high-speed railway systems, and also the airport systems. Then the next one that was really important for me and also was a great pleasure, I was the first ever CEO of Siemens Africa, being responsible for the whole portfolio of Siemens in Africa, putting Africa for the first time also on the map for the managing board. And then, of course, moving from Siemens to Airbus, 1st of January 2016 was a big step, entering into the defense and space industry as a newcomer, but really enjoying especially the, let's say, European setup of Airbus with 4 home nations. Managing the complexity of such a company is a very, very interesting learning experience. And then, of course, ramping up important projects like the Future Combat Air System that will definitely play a role in the decades to come. So these were some of the important stations in my career path. And yeah, for the first time now, since a year in a startup, where we try really to do a little revolution of airspace and aerospace, where we try to decarbonize the industry a bit faster than with sustainable aviation fuel or hydrogen, but starting to fly electric operation already next year.
Mm-hmm. Thank you so much. Now, as you are hosted by a university, now education-wise, what was your educational background?
I'm a mechanical engineer, graduate from the Technische Hochschule Braunschweig. And in my thesis, was concentrating on production engineering, and then entering automotive, aerospace, and being in many different industries, mining, metals, process industries, over the last 30 years.
Mm-hmm. Thank you so much for sharing your vita and these different, let's say, experiences or stations. And now we have been getting together to discuss the topic of how to bring urban air mobility to life. And you combined or have been combining this urban air mobility with sustainability, to put it that way. I think you've been preparing a presentation, a little one, which will assumingly last for 10 to 15 minutes. And I would like the audience to write me questions, to mark down questions, to which I will then do my best to bring in. And so please send the questions to livetalk@mci.edu. I'll repeat, livetalk@mci.edu. But now we truly look forward to your presentation.
is reality right now and what is fiction. There are a lot of stories out in the market. So what we do differently than many other companies is, first of all, we are rather conservative in announcing what we will do. And what we also do differently is we develop a whole family of aircraft. So you see the Volocity, that is a multi-copter principle that is optimized to fly within a city range, and the Volo region that rather connects then regions to cities or cities, and the Volo drone that can carry up to 150 kilo of cargo. And all of that is managed by a software platform that we call Volo IQ, being able not only to monitor our test activities, but also to pre-book tickets, do the onboarding process, the flight planning. So a very integrated platform. What is important to know is it's a long way from a first idea to go into certification. So this doesn't happen overnight. The founders have started with the first ever eVTOL flight of mankind. This was the famous picture of the yoga ball in 2011. 2013, they had a first flight within a factory hall. In 2016, they had the first manned flight. And since 2016, continuously, we flew all over the world manned and unmanned test flights so that people can also witness how it would feel to have these vehicles in our environment, especially to overcome wrong perceptions where people believe it will be loud as a helicopter, it will be more like the Fifth Element, it will darken our skies, we will have millions of drones flying around us. That is not the case. It is a small vehicle, very, very small footprint. It's emission-free, it's very safe, it's the same safety level as an Airbus AC-20, and it's very quiet. So it's like in 75 meters hovering distance, you still have only below 65 decibel. Me talking right now is somewhere between 50 to 60 decibel. So you can imagine it's really blending into a normal city, a car or a truck, pretty louder than our vehicles. So we believe that it's important. There are two critical items to overcome. First, certification. Of course, there are a lot of barriers to certify that it's a safe operation. Secondly is public acceptance, because if we see that there's a high resistance within the city to embrace that new technology, you cannot scale and you cannot create a business case. But we believe that with these many demonstration test flights, we embrace that. We give the population a chance to understand what this new technology is about. Here you see two of the family aircraft. The upper part is the Volocity. We have flown that beyond 120 kilometers an hour. We have flown more than half an hour. The operational distance in Paris will be only limited to 21 kilometers because we have to fly also against headwinds at the end of the life of battery. And therefore we limit at the beginning the operational range till we have more experience and can extend it then further. Safety level for all our vehicles is 10 to minus 9. That means one critical mistake every 1 billion operating hours. That means never. So it's extremely safe. And once we get this type certificate from EASA, passengers can be ensured that once they enter our vehicles, it is the same safety level as flying an A3. Model that will tackle a different market. This is the regional model that will fly around 1 hour, because we believe if it's more than 1 hour, you need a toilet on board. So we believe a 5-seater, 1 pilot, 4 passengers flying 1 hour, and in that time flying around 200 kilometers is a perfect model to extend the capabilities of the Volocity. What is also, I think, in order to gain public acceptance, we have to demonstrate that it's not a tool for the rich, so that it's accessible, but also we go beyond that because we have a cooperation with ADAC, our Yellow Angels that are well known for providing emergency medical service in Europe, especially, of course, in Germany. They operate a helicopter fleet of more than 50 vehicles. And they want to extend that fleet by our vehicles, starting already next year, not in 10 years, starting test with 2 vehicles that they bought already. Then from next year onwards, bringing the doctor to the accident, medical doctors that will arrive faster than they would arrive on streets, and by that starting to save lives. And based on that, we also will develop the next generation of the aircraft, always with the requirements of ADAC, to include also all the relevant equipment that is necessary to bring medical doctors to the accident. And longer distance, then also we would also aim in the next generations to come that we would bring then patients to the hospital. So a very important case that always everyone understands. There are many other cases like transporting organs, where today helicopters are used. We can do that more quiet, more efficient, and more safe. Why I'm saying more safe? A helicopter safety level is only 10 to minus 7 because you have only one gearbox and one set of rotors. So with that, you cannot achieve a safety level of 10 to minus 9 like in the commercial aircraft business. VoloIQ is a platform that enables us to test all our vehicles. It registers all the data. It will also do so for all the flights in the future. It is also an integrated booking platform, so you can book the ticket in the platform, and then while you arrive at the, you can do the onboarding process, security control, and then onboard the flight. And of course, at the end, we aim for integrating other modalities in order to have a smooth journey from door to door, because we only a little piece of that journey, and we need to make sure that you have a good onboarding and a good offboarding experience. Mostly we concentrate on passengers, but we also do the cargo drone. Why are we doing that? Because we believe that for the years to come, we will only fly with a pilot, but we need to, of course, make progress on understanding automation, moving towards autonomy. And we do that on the cargo side, where it's much safer to experience different scenarios and, of course, test different use cases. So for us, this is a technology demonstrator moving towards autonomy in the years to come, but only moving it into the passenger vehicle when we see that there is a certification roadmap that enables us to fly within a certain time frame. What is needed to fly in the civil airspace? A couple of different things. In Europe, under certification of EASA, you need a design organization approval, DOA, and a production organization approval that allows you to design and produce vehicle for the civil airspace. On top, if you want to operate these vehicles, you need an air operator certificate that allows you to operate commercial aircraft. We're currently having the DOA, the POA, the AOC is currently under preparation. We bought an aircraft, we created an airline. So we're currently in the finalization of that process step. And then the final step that we need is the TC, the type certificate of the vehicle. For the Volocity, we are now building the conforming aircraft and starting certification that leads us to certification. If everything goes right, go into service in Paris summer next year. So this is important to understand. This is under EASA, the second important body globally to certify commercial aircraft is FAA in the US. Here it's slightly different, but we applied already for concurrent certification. We received the G1 certificate for certification under FAA for special class rotorcraft, which gives us the certainty once we receive the EASA certification that a few months later we will also be certified to fly under FAA jurisdiction. Here you see the different technologies. The left one is optimized for cities with the multi-copter design. Our regional aircraft has, again, the same safety level because we have a so-called lift and cruise design, that we have lifting motors that are separate from the push motors. No moving parts that could fail in order to achieve, again, the 10 to minus 9 safety level. On the right side, you see tilting technology. You know, a lot of companies use that. It's a bit more difficult to certify, especially because you need to demonstrate that you have enough redundancy to achieve a same 10 to minus 9. In most cases, they will be limited to 10 to minus 7 because of the non-redundancy of the system. On the noise level, I think, as I said, flying into a city is of course the objective because this is the biggest market. We estimate that 60% of the global market for these kind of vehicles will be within a city area. And it needs to be safe, it needs to be sustainable, no emission, and it needs to be quiet. As I said, around 75 meters away, hovering, it will be below 65 decibels. So it's a really low noise level. And how do we achieve that? By having 18 motors, very small, below 8 kilo, very low tip speed, really optimized to low noise levels. So because I think we have enough stress in our city environment, and we don't want to add to that stress level. So it has to be extremely quiet. And then we start operation next year in Paris. And this is, of course, very exciting because we have announced during the Paris Air Show already 5 routes with our partner, Aéroport de Paris, also aligned with the French authorities. And here you can see on the upper right side, we fly from Charles de Gaulle to Le Bourget between the international airport and the general aviation airport. Then you see a small touristic flight around Le Bourget, mostly also to demonstrate that we fly in a heavily congested area, how this intermix with the existing air traffic. Then below you see a route that goes to Versailles from an existing heliport. Interesting story is that when you fly today with a helicopter, you have to wait 1 hour at a grass landing outside of Versailles. And it's difficult to get even a coffee before you can return because the neighbors don't like the noise of the helicopters. Our vehicle you will not hear, so we expect that we can fly forth and back without disturbing the neighbors, but also without unnecessary waiting time. And then the most important part is the blue line symbolizes the no-fly zone of Paris. So no aircraft, no helicopter flies into that zone, and we will be allowed starting next year to fly into that no-fly zone. And there's on the River Seine, a pontoon that is currently under construction, and we will land on that pontoon on the River Seine, just on the opposite side of the railway station of Austerlitz. And that will be an amazing picture, and of course, something you'll never forget. So we are really looking forward to our entry to service for Paris next year. And that's it, a short introduction, just to give you a short glimpse of what we plan to do. Yeah, it's not happening in 10 years. A lot of people still believe it's far out. It's starting next year. It will step up every year. There will be more cities using a few lines and a few vehicles. It will not be in the first step hundreds of vehicles, but dozens, and then slowly stepping up towards the end of the decade. Then next decade, moving into more higher automation and autonomy. And with that, of course, then the real scaling is possible. And yeah, looking forward to see you in Paris and beyond. And hopefully you will also like the service that we will provide in the future.
Thank you so much, dear Dirk, for this very, very inspiring and from my point, also very emotional presentation. I mean, this is really fascinating to see how mobility in the urban living and the urban environment may change. I marked down some questions from my side, and the one is more, let's say, a technical one. Which is, you've been mentioning the issue of noise quite often, of the decibels in certain distance, but isn't also the wind effects, like turbulence is created by normally, let's say, an aircraft or a helicopter. Isn't that an issue if you want to land in the garden and whatever, near a restaurant, I don't know, whatever may be the case? How does that work?
Now, first of all, this is still a long time away when we fly to private gardens and individual routes. So starting, it will be all flying in fixed corridors between vertiports. that are certified for it, and that, of course, have no problem with these vehicles arriving. And secondly, it's a minimum, let's say, turbulence created compared to a helicopter, because we have these 18 motors, very small, as I said, and optimized for low noise. That means also very, very low tip speed. So the wind created, turbulence created is really, really low. That's also why it's so quiet. And definitely nothing people have to worry that living in the environment of a vertiport.
Yeah. No, actually, it's just the opposite of being worried. First of all, you do not know how big or how large my private garden is. But I was rather thinking or having in mind this idea of transporting patients from an accident to whatever, to a hospital together with ADAC or something, because that must be a very, very strong competitive advantage to a regular aircraft. And this is why I was curious about it.
But these cases are different. I spend one day with ADAC to understand how they fly their missions. So most of the time you have them waiting for something to happen, but once something happens, they need to be within 60 to 120 seconds in the air. That means a pilot plus a medical doctor, and then they're on the way. And and then of course they have priority in air traffic, so they can go direct. Every other aircraft needs to give.
All right.
When I was there, we landed really on the street crossing, and you need a very good pilot to do that. With our vehicle, it would be much easier. It's much easier to control. It's much more stable with wind. So with our vehicles, it will be much easier to go into these kind of.
Yeah, actually, I think that was another technical questions I've marked down. I'm an economist, not a technician, nor a mechanical engineer. But especially with these many propellers, you have much better, must have a much better opportunity to balance the plane through whatever different situations, sharper, closer, more precise, keep it more stable and so on. We know that from our university where they build these drones and these multicopters. But this is, I think, the second or the third most strongest competitive advantage.
Yeah, this is the exact right comparison. If you try to fly a toy helicopter, it's still very complicated. If you have not trained it, you will probably crash the helicopter. If you take, for example, a DJI drone, without any experience, you can fly it very easy. And so this is really the case, very easy to fly and very easy to train. This will be also one of the questions that we have to clarify in the years to come with EASA on the training and qualification of pilots. Right now, it is more or less the profile of an A320 pilot, but in the future, we need to also discuss how we can reduce that qualification, because first of all, it's a very expensive and quite long education timeline. And then it's a total
availability of pilots
in order to fly the whole day. Yes, and you need to fly forth and back, I don't know, half an hour. It's not you don't fly international flights, intercontinental. You really fly within a city, and it's something like 20 kilometer each, or maybe in the future then 50 kilometer. But it will change the job profile. It will mean that maybe fathers and mothers staying at home for their kids can work half day flying these vehicles in their environment. So it will change the job profile as well.
Just fascinating. So how long did it take you, I mean, to from the idea or from the first, let's say, engineering attempt to do research or to create pilot projects to where you have been able to produce or to bring the first aircraft, the first Volocopter into the flying mode? How long did that take?
The founders, they met through skate. They were both skaters and they knew each other. And one of the founders was fascinated by the new toy drones and the Volocopter principle. He said, if this works for toys, why shouldn't it work also in bigger? And then they said, okay, why not trying to build one? This is the yoga ball experiment in 2011. It took them a few months to build it and to fly it for the first time. And then they got millions of clicks on YouTube, and people told them, why you're not continuing? You did great. And within 2 years, they built a first prototype, 2 years. Okay. And then from there, it was another 3 years to build the first vehicle and certify it so that a pilot could fly it. One of the other founders was then even taking helicopter lessons so that he was certified to fly the vehicle himself. And this was in 2016. By now, we have done more than 2,000 test flights, and now going into this fifth, sixth generation aircraft that will be now certified.
All right, thank you so much. Now, what was the most, let's say, critical situation you have been going through, if you want to even respond to this question?
I think it's the fast growth pace. The company has grown from 2015, 5 people to 700 when I joined last year, and I stopped the growth now. I said I limited now because I think we are already at the maximum team size that we should have in order to run the next steps of development. So the growth phase was very difficult, especially combined with the COVID-19 phase, where people were mostly starting into a company from remotely. So adding 300 people in a year that don't know each other because they have seen each other only on the screen has been a tremendous challenge. And this is since the beginning of the year, we bring the people back to the office, which is a challenge after people got used to it and now coming back, but also meeting for the first time. I still see very often faces I have not seen before, despite we are only 700 people. Before I had 40,000 people. So we are in the process of digesting the fast growth and now needing to consolidate, concentrating on stable processes, organization, and or execution discipline.
I truly can understand and follow what you've been describing now. I mean, I was the first and only one to engage in this university. I mean, there was a project team before, but then when it came to the decision now who will continue on and not stay, let's say, as a faculty member of the Public University of Innsbruck or in other obligations, then you have what I call management by tea kitchen or by coffee break. That everyone approaches you and you liked it or management by Nike, by sports shoes, that everyone walks or can approach each other. But then growing, then you need to install let's say another management level or decision makers level. And really more or less cut off parts of your team. I hope you don't cut it off, totally. But I mean, that creates a totally different way to communicate, to engage, to manage, and so on. And that is really at least something which touched me emotionally a lot, and still does. But you can't decide everything, and you can't be available and approachable to everyone as much as you would like to.
Now it was a challenging phase. It still is a challenging phase, but I think now we're really making good progress. We're transforming the company, and now looking forward really to the next challenges. So because going into operation is face a lot of challenges, things that we expected, but not always really fully prepared. So it's a young company, and we're still in the learning process.
Now, I've been receiving questions, and one comes from Jürgen. He is a student. I do not know more about his background, unfortunately, anyway, but I may just present the question, and it goes, working at an airline myself, that comes from Jürgen. I would be interested in how will you do the operations part? Will you build an IOCC yourself, or have it done by a third party?
Now, we will start doing the operation ourselves. So Paris, Rome, next year, we will be the operator of the aircraft. This is why we founded an airline earlier this year. And this is why we're going through the AOC application process right now. We also apply for the ATO, so we will also train the pilots ourselves. For Paris and Rome, we will do that because we don't have yet the partner that can take that in a responsible manner. Midterm, we will definitely not do that. We will cooperate with airlines and experienced operators. You might have seen a very experienced operator, and we will engage with them to train in both directions so that we can manage expectation. Why are we doing that? We cannot afford that there's any incident in the first years that is created by not following the rules 100%. So we need to make sure that this is not damaging our reputation. This is why we start to do that ourselves. But once we have more experienced operators that have been following our training rules, then we will also outsource the operation of our vehicle.
Another question now. Again, I try to find out who it came from. But you said that I mean, it's a different sender. You said that the Volocopter should be affordable to everyone, but still, I ask myself, how much should now cost such a sightseeing flight, or even a flight from the airport to the city of Paris with the Volocopter? I mean, cost-based, not market-based pricing.
It's I think we're currently still in discussion with our partner what will be the ticket price. So I cannot tell you because it's not been decided. I always say when I get the question, I say it will be somewhere in the range of 10 to 15 euro per kilometer. So it could, is this covering all the cost? No, clear no. Because if you take the full total cost of ownership, including building the new infrastructure in, of course, it will not cover the cost. So if you take the subsidized infrastructure out, it's already a different case. But at the beginning, flying only one passenger, it's still not making a good business case. So this is why we, at beginning, for the first 2 years, we subsidized the operation together with our partners, and then end of 26, when we come in to the market with a 4 to 5 seater, it is a valid business model where the price will go down to 3 to 5 euro per passenger per seat per kilometer, and that's very affordable then.
But Dirk, you may perhaps take home as a business idea from this little event that you may already create a website to book the first flights with a Volocopter, as it was a fly into the space, into the orbit, and sell it to individuals who want to have this adventure and make a selfie picture of these flights.
Unfortunately, it's a bit more complicated. We start the operation in France, and France is rather a country of understatement, and they want to ensure that it's not seen as tool for the rich. We could easily auction the first 1,000 tickets to rich people, and they would probably get higher and higher in the pricing because they want to be the first one to fly. It would create the wrong impression, and we need to make sure that we have a good start where people see it's accessible to everyone. Of course, also not everyone uses a normal taxi today, because a lot of people use, and this is good, we need mass transportation systems like metros, buses, and so on. It's not replacing anything. It's giving more options, and it's taking some stress level away from certain routes. And also, especially in Paris, if you ever have experience, if you want to be really on time from the airport to a meeting downtown, people take motor taxis. And to be honest, that's not 10 to minus 9. This is less than 10 to minus 6 on the risk level. So being on the backside, hoping that the driver is a good driver and that he's not overseen by someone in the traffic on the periphery. I have done that a few times because I was late in order to make sure that I can be on the meeting with ministers and so on. But I wouldn't like to repeat that. So I'd rather take a Volo city flight than a motorbike
Another question now from, now I know who the question came from, Martin Plunger. Excuse me, now let me check my emails. Simon Plunger, sorry. He's an MCI student, and he sent me another question. How long does it take to charge the Volocopter, and if a larger fleet is used that rotates constantly between charging and flights, that may be relevant. Yeah?
It's a good point. I forgot to mention, we will not do fast charging, we will do swapping.
Okay.
What we do is we have 9 battery packs, each of them around 30 kilos, and we will swap them. And we have battery charging containers where we can charge several batteries at the same time. Okay. And we do slow charging in order to increase the lifetime of the batteries. And this will take around 4 hours to charge the batteries. So this is our starting point. Why we're doing that is also to reduce weight on the vehicle, because once you do fast charging in the vehicle, you need water cooling, you need a lot of precautions. And in order to get certified and reduce the complexity of the vehicle, we decided to do at the beginning swapping. Also, maybe regarding the size of the vehicle, to put it into also relationship to many others that you probably see in the internet. Ours is only 1,000 kilo maximum takeoff weight, including passengers, batteries, and luggage. So it's less than a ton, so it's lighter than most of the cars, including passengers and batteries on board. So it's a small vehicle to start with, and we will grow it once the batteries are ready for doing it. One of the reasons why we're ahead of everyone in the world is that we start with a 2-seater, because everyone else struggles with the batteries to fly 4 or 5-seater with the performance indicators they have announced to the market.
Now another question now from Jürgen, and now I know better who Jürgen in reality is. He studies also at the MCI Economy and Leadership, and I think flies. He's an Airbus 350 and 380 pilot, and he has sent me an additional question. Fascinating who we are able to address. Now, will you do the pilot training in-house?
Yeah, I mentioned it before. We currently preparing for the ATO, so we will for the first years do the pilot training. But later on, we already signed agreements with ADAC that they would become a pilot training entity for us. And secondly, we work also with established simulation companies, so where we do the part of the training within the simulator. And then, of course, we have in-classroom training. So partly we will also do it ourselves, of course, also supporting the type rating. But in the future, more and more will be outsourced. Beginning, as we start small, we have to do it ourselves.
And now, perhaps the next question has already been partly or fully answered. It refers to active battery cooling. Perhaps that's not necessary anymore because you do not have these fast chargers. But I'm not, as an economist, not certain whether the cooling is only necessary with respect to fast charging or at all, but to a lower level. And now, does the Volo region have active battery cooling during the flight, or does it also have battery switch? Now, sorry, I think it was already answered. And this question came from Raphael Schaubschläger. He is an industrial engineering and management student at the MCI. But he has, I think, sent me also an additional question. Let me check, look down at my screen. No, I think you have all his questions or comments relate to this issue.
Region, what we will do for the next generation vehicle, be it for the Volo City and also for the Volo region coming out 26, 27, this allows for higher payload and longer range. and this generation will probably move towards the fast charging. So this will then, of course, include active cooling, a complete different concept on how we handle the vehicles. So this will be then in the next generation.
Mm-hmm. Now, a question from my side. You've been mentioning the certification or permission or admission to the market approval, however you may call that. Is there a European authority, or is there still national authorities to overcome, or even regional ones? How is the landscape in this respect?
The whole civil airspace is divided into two entities. This is, or let's say mostly. It's the FAA for North America and some other countries, and it is the EASA mostly for Europe and also additional countries. You have China has its own authorization body, and most of the other countries follow EASA and FAA certification. So what we do normally, when we, for example, go to Japan, we will apply for a concurrent license and will involve them in the EASA certification process, which allows us then, with little more effort, also to be certified in Japan, for example, where we want to fly beginning of 2025 for the World Exhibition in Osaka. So with FAA and EASA, you cover almost the whole world, and with very little extra effort, you can get the national authorization as well.
Mm-hmm. Another question now coming from Kevin Jones. He is a student, I think, an exchange student from the Appalachian State University in the United States. And his question is, what was the most difficult decision you've had ever to make?
Oh, I think the most difficult was one when I decided to leave Siemens, because I worked at that time 20 years in Siemens, and I always expected I would retire in Siemens. But then it was at the end turning out to be a good decision, because first of all, it brought me here, so I have a lot of different new experiences. But it was difficult for me after 20 years, very good experiences in Siemens, expecting to be retiring there to change. And yeah, that was a very difficult decision.
That more or less answers the question I got from several listeners to us, and that is, when did you start to become a startup entrepreneur? Or I mean, the question was more or less, did you always want to become one? And I now translated it into when did you? Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it's a funny story. It's I had it always in the last 30 years on my mind, but to be honest, I was too scared and I didn't have the brilliant idea. So when I left Airbus and I got a lot of different offers to run very large companies, in the last second, the offer for Volocopter came in, and I turned down very nice offers, and also consulting with my own family. And there was, I mentioned that before in some other conferences, I asked also my daughter, and she's now a student at the KIT, the Karlsruhe Institute of Technology for Industrial Engineering. And she said, Dad, you have proven that you can run big entities, you made good money, why are you not doing something really cool? And yeah, at the end, after all the discussions and checkings, I did turn down the big companies and decided to go to Volocopter, also with the idea that if everything turns out right, we will write a little chapter of the aerospace history, because if we were really the first one to fly commercially, it is a big milestone. It's something that I think is worth it to take a lot of other compromises, and that was at the end making up my decision. Yeah.
Now, a question from my office team. Volocopter is also developing Volodrone. Which one has more potential to bring good revenues in the longer run?
Definitely the Volocity. We did a lot of analysis on the different scenarios. First of all, the existing cargo drone we will replace by a new one. We're currently building the new prototype, which will be much more cost efficient and more optimized for certain use cases. There we look at new use cases like ship to shore and vice versa. And we also look at use cases like to fly onto offshore platforms or to wind turbines in offshore. All of these kind of things we look at, but specific markets that we want to target because it's quite a big drone. Having 150 kilo payload is not a standard drone. But there, of course, we take advantage of the experience that we gained by developing our passenger vehicles. And again, as I said, it's also our technology demonstrator to move forward on higher automation and towards autonomy. But revenue-wise, I'm definitely convinced that Volocity will be a much bigger business case than the cargo drone.
Now, a question from Daniel Kern. He's a former MCI student, so an alumnus living in Switzerland now. Does Volocopter outsource the application process for operational authorizations for the flight operations to third parties?
Not sure what you mean with that. As I said, we will at the beginning, we do the operation completely ourselves. So that's why we created the airline. In the years to come, going to additional cities, wherever possible, we will do it together with airlines and other professional operators.
I think if I understood the question correctly, it is the outsourcing or potential outsourcing of operational authorizations for the flight. So
but this is the certification process. This is you see that there's several elements. It's the type certificate so that you can operate these vehicles in civil airspace. The second one is the air operator certificate that you need as an airline to operate this kind of vehicle in a certain environment. And then you need in Paris, this is what we have done for the last 3 years, to get all the other approvals to fly within the city environment. So we work with municipalities, fire brigades, policemen, so all different kinds of levels of politicians to get the acceptance by the local authorities to fly in their city. If you mean that, we do that definitely ourselves. No one else can do that.
Yeah, first of all, no one else has the competences, and that you learn from the answers, I think.
Yeah, I think this is also where we differentiate from any other company in the world. Working for the last 3 years with Paris on all these details, being allowed now to fly into the no-fly zone in Paris shows the amount of work that is necessary to get there. And none of the other companies has started such a diligent process to look at really into detail of operation within a complicated city like Paris. Paris is really a milestone because Paris doesn't like helicopters. Allowing us to fly now these new vehicles in Paris is a major milestone.
I mean, I can imagine no city would really encourage more helicopters to come in. And first of all, there will be hesitations also to electrical helicopters like Volocopter.
Seriously, yeah. That is why we say the first 2 years is really mostly working with the public.
Yeah.
They understand it's safe, it's quiet, and it's sustainable.
Daniel Zobel, who is an active or actual student at the MCI, studying management communications and IT. I can imagine that the business you are in is highly capital intensive due to R&D demand and all the certification processes, several regulations, while missing revenues, or at least up to now. How did you overcome these challenges?
Oh, this is a daily challenge still because fundraising is a big part of my job. You see, if you look at all the companies that you can follow that are already listed, that have done a SPAC or a different kind of listing, you can see that the capital requirement is somewhere between $100 and $400 million per year. and already the existing companies that are listed, you can see the amount of capital for the industry needed. So this is a constant challenge every day. I think what we did better is we didn't use the silver bullet yet, because once you go for a SPAC or IPO, you need to be ready for a growth story. Because once you're listed, every quarter you have to explain to your shareholders when you start creating revenues. This is very difficult in a private, but in a public company, this is even more visible, because everything you do is under surveillance, and you need to come up with a good story. And being years away from certification and revenues is a constant challenge. We are the closest of all companies to create the certification and the revenue story. And then this enables us also to go into a story for an IPO, because then we start creating revenues, we can have a growth story. And of course, we have then also a visible distance to become a profitable company. So that's why we are definitely only going to an IPO once we also creating that revenue story.
Another question coming from Mr. Wolfgang Bari-Schmidt, and he is seemingly an experienced Army heli pilot on Bell 47, G2, Alouette, and more. And he has sent me the question, will most of your future pilots have a helicopter rather than a fixed wing background?
Today, EASA allows us to use both. So you can have a rotating PPL or a fixed wing PPL and then a CPL on top. It doesn't have to be a rotating equipment. So right now, this is both is accepted by EASA. Of course, having experience with rotating equipment is an advantage. But you see, our vehicles fly so easy. If you ever want to get a first glimpse, the Microsoft Flight Simulator, the current version has our vehicle inside, and this compares pretty nicely already to the real flight experience. So if you ever have a chance, you get an idea about how it feels like to fly a Volocity.
Thank you so much. As I realize that we slowly run out of time, and I need to come to an end. Perhaps you allow me to bring in 2, 3, perhaps more questions. And one is now being responsible for a university. What if you had a wish, or you had Santa Claus sitting in front of you? What would be your wish list to universities looking at your career or from the background of Volocopter?
There are two components that will define the success of an eVTOL company, and this is the battery pack and the electric drivetrain. So having more students coming with more experience on these two topics out of universities would be a real strong support of the industry, because you will see that there will be a lot of needs for these kind of profiles that understand a full battery pack, not only the cells. The cells represent like 15% of the value, but going now, we still use cylindric cells. In the future, we might use pouch or solid state, but building a battery pack based on existing cells is still quite an intensive design work. And then, of course, the electric drivetrain, having that all linked together, understanding the system, the heart of the vehicle, is so crucial for the success of a company like Volocopter. So yeah, we would love to see more students coming with that experience. And then, of course, I think all responsibility is to create better diversity, because we still see STEM-wise, we need to do much more. We see still that, especially in Europe and northern part of Europe, we see that only 10 to 20% female candidates come out of university. And there's no reason why this should not be towards 50%. And yeah, that's why I'm happy that my daughter becomes an engineer. Hopefully we see much more female candidates in the future also looking towards technical degrees.
At a very nice university like Caltech, yeah. So Anyway, and interesting that you mentioned the issue of diversity, because and that you also have been mentioning that this is a very European or Northern European concept or problem, because if you go, for instance, to the Middle East, if you go to India or so, actually there is a balance, or I mean, there is no difference when it comes to STEM disciplines.
Yeah. Even in Spain, you see already more than
Yep.
30% female graduates. So it's really more a Northern European problem.
And this is the reason why we've been, mentioning this, to also encourage the female part of our cohorts coming out of schools to really take this chance, because there is wonderful opportunities. Now, perhaps one of my last questions: what would you say is the biggest bottleneck or bottlenecks in what you are doing now, or if you see what you want to do more, or what you want to do better? What would you say is the biggest bottleneck or bottlenecks?
No, I think right now, since COVID and Ukraine crisis, fundraising is so much more difficult that it really takes a lot of the management resources out. So this is really the bottleneck. Before, it was pretty easy to raise money. There was a lot of liquidity in the market. Right now, this has changed completely. So it's a constant daily challenge to get the funds for next year. This is probably the biggest bottleneck. On technology, again, it's the access to talents in the field of batteries and propulsion technologies. This is also another bottleneck that we face regularly.
And to add on that, now, has it really to do with COVID, or is it more with the increase of interest rates to create more difficulties to approach additional fundings?
I think it is all connected, because it started during COVID that our supply chain was challenged. And based on that, we saw there was a disruption and an ongoing change process to stabilize the supply chain, creating additional regional suppliers, all adding to the cost structure, but also to the complexity of our systems. And with that, we also saw that at the same time, when the Ukraine crisis started, a lot of investors were changing their strategy. Before, there was not so much of due diligence process. It was more throwing money at storytellers. Right now, it changed to the complete opposite, where you don't only have to have a growth story, a revenue story, you also need to have an EBITDA story. That changed drastically. And what also changed is that in order to be more prudent after getting burned, a lot of companies changed more towards software. You see, software companies still can raise money much easier than asset-heavy companies, especially in the AI topic. Artificial intelligence is a big boom right now. So you see that there are areas where fundraising is still much easier than in the capital-intensive, asset-heavy industries.
And my last question is, now you've been speaking, or the two of us have been speaking, especially to young people, to present students. Now, what kind of advice or advices would you give them?
First of all, get international experience, because we need people that understand different cultures, that understand that globalization is what we need. It is not something that we should stop, but rather continue to foster. Understanding that we're all different and that diversity is good, even if it's challenging sometimes. We run a company of 700 people with almost 60 nationalities, and this comes with a high complexity. But out of diverse teams, you always get better solutions, despite the additional work you have to put in making sure that people understand each other and that they learn from each other. But diversity is really important in all dimensions, and this is something you need to experience. You need also know how it feels in the shoes of others by leaving your zone of comfort and experiencing a new culture, a new country, a new environment is always a very good experience to level out and create a better tolerance that you need then in your working life in order to be successful.
Thank you so much, Dirk, for sharing your views, bringing in, allowing us to learn so much from your expertise, your experience, and also your emotions. I'm really grateful for myself, but also very much for the audience, for our students, alumni, faculty, guests, and so on. Now, many thanks. I need to say goodbye now. But before doing that, I would like to encourage our audience to stay with us for the next events. Other guests, we will welcome His Excellency Michael Prinz Liechtenstein, seine Durchlaucht Michael Prinz von und zu Liechtenstein. He is a financial, he's an investor, he's a multi-entrepreneur, but also one of the founders, or he's the founder of Geopolitical Intelligence Services and the initiator of Der Pragmaticus, which is a very quality-oriented magazine in Austria now. And he will speak on Europe Quo Vadis, Europa Quo Vadis, Moralismus und Zeitgeist statt Vernunft und Fakten. So that's more, let's say, a societal, but also an economic issue. And the next Thursday, so Thursday 19th, it will also be an on-campus event, but it will be live streamed. And we will have the honor and pleasure to welcome Her Excellency Svetlana Tsikhanovskaya. She is the national leader of Belarus, head of the United Transitional Cabinet of Belarus, and she will speak on Europe in the world. What about freedom and democracy? And for those who are not really aware of her story and her personality, her husband was condemned to 18 years of prison because he became a candidate for the presidential elections against the actual Belarusian president. And then she fled with her daughter to Lithuania and was condemned to 15 years of prison in absence. So that is something really to appreciate, that she will visit us on the 19th of October at 6:30 p.m. And as I said, it will be live streamed, and it will be done. The live stream will be done together with the University of California, Berkeley. And the next day already, and then I'll come to an end, at noon, at lunchtime, 12:30 noon, it will be an online live talk with His Excellency Ban Ki-moon, the 8th Secretary General of the United Nations, and he will talk about sustainability, entrepreneurship, and innovation, how to engage in global citizenship. So all this information can be found on our website. But now, once again, Dirk, thank you so much. A lot of gratitude to your time and to your expertise. And perhaps I'll leave the last word to you.
No, first of all, thank you for inviting me. Hope that we can do that in the future also in presence. Happy to engage. It's always good to also allow more discussion with students. I really enjoyed it every time I do that. And yeah, thanks for staying with us at late afternoon, and hope to meet some of you in the future.